Barbecue, cowboy hats, and wide open spaces. If these things make you think of Texas, maybe it's time we add racing to the list, with COTA becoming a staple in American motorsports. And today, our drivers will tackle this track as we get ready for qualifying in the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America GT3 Cup Series. I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Joey Atterbury. Joey, I can't wait to see these cars fly around this place.
That's the key word. They are going to be flying around this place. Circuit of the Americas, COTA, right here in Austin, Texas. You can see the weather that we've got out here. A beautiful weekend for racing. It's not blazing heat like we had in 2025. It's actually a pretty mild afternoon, or I should say morning right now.
Yeah, definitely a lot more mild than what we experienced the past 2 years, honestly, for Sprint Challenge. You can see the drivers are already on the circuit. Now, if you are new to GT3 Cup here in Sprint Challenge, just a reminder that they have split up the qualifying. This is Group A, and then we will have Group B in a little bit after this. That shot certainly makes it look a lot more hazy than it actually is. It's gotten better as the day has gone on, as you'd expect. The sun kind of burning things off a little bit, Joey.
And I think it's going to continue to do so. And tomorrow it actually looks like it's going to be up in, call it the mid-80s. But right now, we do have a green flag on the racetrack for, call it Group A in GT3 Cup qualifying. We will have that Group B coming up afterwards.
That 243 has been on an absolute tear. That is the only car to have won races so far this season out of 6 rounds run. So Carl Stout is looking like the man to beat. We'll see what his lap times show, because he hasn't always been on pole, but usually he tends to be up there. It's often been Lockie Bloxham who has been the biggest challenge for Carl. It's just nobody seems to be able to manage it. By the time we get to the checkered flag, it's been close. It's just it seems like you need those last couple tenths to finally do something to get by this Kelly Moss car.
And you're right. The one thing that I do see, though, is an absence of Lockie Bloxham on our entry list here for Circuit of the Americas. So I think that Carl Stout may be breathing a sigh of relief knowing that, especially after what you were just mentioning.
We'll see. You know, we haven't gotten there yet, so it does look good for him, but we haven't seen any times put on the board yet, with this being the first flying lap for all of our drivers. And as you kind of expect, Carl Stout is showing purple in the first 2 that we've gone through so far. But a few other names to watch out for is Elaine Scalzo and Mark Bowden. They are in a very tight fight for the Masters Championship. That's going to be important. Scalzo is out in this session. I believe Bowden is going to be in the next session, Group B. But Elaine has managed to get 1 win so far, whereas Mark Bowden has already racked up 2 in his category. Up and around turn 19 and into 20, that's 2 of the corner exits that the stewards are watching out for. You don't want to go too wide.
You see Carl Stout pretty much using all of that corner exit. I think it's actually Blake McGovern giving chase as well. So our first lap, 207.67. Carl Stout in that white and green 243 go to the top, and Blake McGovern gives chase right now with a 208.64. Luke French slots into third. Those are our top 3 times on the board currently.
Yeah, Blake was really hanging it out coming around turn 20. You could see that rear want to escape him. And you see the 240 coming down through the S's currently. Hankins up to that second place. I think Joey mentioned that has already had some practice out on the circuit, and I think that has been helping him. The more reps you can put around this long track, the better.
I was going through those practice times. Carl Stout was fastest at a 207.0, and then Siegel was there at a 207.4, Blake McGovern at a 207.5. So I think right now we do see some very, very fast times for those first laps. I wonder how many people are going to continue to run throughout this, call it 20-minute session, or if they're going to go down there, put down 1, 2, maybe 3 laps, then call it.
I'm glad you brought up Matt Siegel, because he and Blake McGovern are separated by only 3 points in the championship right now. It's very tight. And Matt started out great. Back at Sebring, he had a 3rd and a 2nd place finish, but then hasn't been on the podium since. But he's been consistent, at least. Had a bit of a rough one in race 1 back at Barber, but has definitely bounced back well. Carl Stout still your quickest, and in fact, I think he's going to repeat that because he's got, again, purple sectors 1 and 2.
He has always been one to chase on the timesheets, and then Blake McGovern right here has actually gone green sector 1, green sector 2, but I do want to say that Brandon Hankins slipped into second place in that Loftus Motorsports machine when we were watching this 240 complete here, lap number 2. This is coming around that long triple apex right-hander. You see him actually kind of hugging the car over the right side rather than letting it feed out drivers left. Carl Stout crossing the line right now. We're going to see if he goes faster. Yes, 207.1. Does Blake McGovern have an answer?
He's going to cross the line as well, and McGovern stays in third, it looks like, so no improvement there. Luke French, I want to give him a shout out. Managed fourth on the first lap around. Does not go quicker this last time by. No, I take that back. He did cut it down to a 2:08.7, but he stays in that fourth position. Todd Treffert moves up into second in the Masters behind Scalzo, but he's about 7/10 off of him. Elaine is a step above the rest currently.
Great lap, though, from Treffert, like you were just mentioning, down into the 2:09s. I have a feeling that the majority of these times, I think the fast guys are going to be in the 2:07s, and then the majority of the field are going to be, call it, into the mid-2:08s, into those low 2:09s. I think that's where the, call it, the majority of the midfield is going to be.
Seems about right to me as we watch Blake down into the hairpin of 11. Critical corner exit, this one, onto the incredibly long back straightaway. We're going to ride on board with French, though, just to show you. Tiny correction off of the corner, but as he comes over the crest, this straight will just keep going and going.
Be pretty fun to watch the top speed here on the data on the right side. You see 100% throttle. There's 150 miles an hour. Grab sixth gear. Look for the brake markers on the right side. Just over 160 miles an hour is what Luke French was doing before he had to jump onto the brakes, and then using up all of that exit runoff out there without crossing over that line to invalidate the lap.
Turn 12 is one of the ones that they are watching, and then things slow up here into the stadium section, having to put in precise inputs. Did he go wide there?
It was, in my opinion, it was just way too tight on the entry, and you saw the understeer creep in about a third of the way through the corner, and then he just couldn't get the car rotated. That turn 15 complex down there is so technical, especially after you've been doing 160 miles an hour on the back straightaway.
Stout did not improve that last time by 2:07.5, still well within, I think, pole time from that one. Up and off the corner for the 2:75 of Luke French, and it's a 2:08.6. He gets so close to Blake McGovern to be on the inside of that second row. He is under a tenth away.
Yeah, 59 to a 68. It's just hairs out there, and it seems like Luke French is going to continue on with this qualifying effort. It was pretty much all the way over drivers right at the top of turn number 1. Big Red is kind of what it's known as here at COTA. It's got such a steep elevation climb, and that was a big slide through the S's. Another big slide with the change of weight direction. I think Luke French is going to have to abandon this lap.
Yeah, he's going to have to cool those tires down as well. My goodness, he was all over the map, and I'm just glad
there's another
still.
big wiggle.
Wow, that car is not happy on this lap. I'm just glad that he didn't wind up going into the tires. We talked about them during the USA West qualifying earlier this morning, and for the most part, drivers have been good about avoiding them, but a mistake like that could wind up sending you barreling into them.
And here's the thing, sector number 1 from Luke French on this lap that we've been making so many comments on, he's green, personal best. So I wonder if he's finally just decided to push it that little bit more, but you know, the analyzation tells us that, hey, if you were able to put the same effort but clean it up, it's going to go even faster.
Yeah, I did check, and Sector 1 ends just between 4 and 5, so that's early in the S's. So I think most of the mistakes we saw did come in Sector 2, which, yeah, is way off the pace for him. No shock there. Not seeing a whole lot of green, frankly, on the tower right now. So this is a lap where a lot of drivers are probably backing off, preparing the car to give another push.
Another thing about COTA that we kind of forget I do feel that this racetrack specifically is probably the most mentally demanding racetrack that we go to all season. And you could also put it up to being one of the most physical racetracks as we see Luke French abandon that lap completely and actually opt to come into pit lane. It's Elaine Scalzo doing the same as well, coming out of turn number 19.
Okay, this is quite early. 8 minutes left to go. If they wanted to, they've got time to get back out there. We'll see if anybody elects to, but if you're new to this series, they have to run these tires in the race, so they really don't want to put any more wear and tear on them than is necessary. That's Todd Treffert. His latest lap not going faster. I did notice that on race control they said that French's lap 2 was invalidated. I think that is the one prior to the slidey one that we were watching before. So that's interesting that he went a little bit far on that lap. We do still have, it looks like, somewhere in the realm of about 5 cars that are on track running right now.
And what I was getting to is, being so mentally demanding and physically demanding that it might be a qualifying session that the drivers go out there and opt to turn 2 laps, maybe 3 laps, and that's what the tires and the equipment has, because we've got to remember 20 turns around this place, 2.5 minutes, or I should say about 2 minutes in these GT3 Cup cars. So the more mileage you do out there, you just got to stick around with those tires for the race.
They're going to be the last race of today, we should point out. And I've been kind of keeping an eye on the weather at times. I saw that there was some maybe coming around 3 in the afternoon. But if that does happen, then we could see a little bit of a green track or maybe even a damp track by the time these cars get out for their race. So far, well, the only green that I did see was Alex Pratt, but he just abandoned into pit lane. This is not looking like a terribly impressive one for Treffert because none of his sectors were an improvement. So we wait to see if he goes after this one by. Looks like McGovern and Hankins are still out on the circuit, and then Vitiello as well is still out there circulating.
It was pretty cool getting that low camera shot around that turn 15 complex where the cars are pretty much just crawling their way around. There's some incredibly fast sections on this racetrack, and then, Joe, it seems like some of these sectors where it feeds into, it's just almost down to a crawl.
Yeah, and that's honestly, I think one of the things that I always had kind of gripes with in the layout of this track when I've raced on it in Sims is, at least maybe it's different inside a real car, but it always felt so fiddly in that stadium section, just finding your way through. But drivers do seem to generally have praise for it, and I have to give it credit. It tends to put on impressive racing with the switchbacks.
And that's what I'm talking about, mentally demanding. You have to be so far in front of the race car in every single one of these corners. Not just this fast stuff in here through this, call it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 combination of S's as we watch Frank Vitiello here in the red 248 go through this exact section. And you see how far in front of the racetrack you have to be from these overhead shots, because in the S's, especially the S's, if you get behind in one corner, you're going to be further behind on the next corner. You're going to be further behind on the next corner. It just seems to compound, and at COTA, it just feeds one corner into another, and it just never seems to kind of let up off of that bleeding.
You got to get everything right out here. Frank down into the hairpin. We have a number of drivers that have returned. Stout is back out on track. Scalzo as well. Keith McGovern, as there is both Keith and Blake in this session, are on track. There we get some live speeds for them down the long straightaway as Frank tries to spot his brake zone into turn 12. Does not want to go wide. You can see some of the fresh pavement that they put in to kind of lessen some of the bumps that this track has recently become rather notorious for.
And thankfully, these Porsches are able to handle everything that this racetrack has to throw at them. It's certainly nice, though, when it is laser smooth, and the drivers will certainly thank. But that's a little bit more of a traditional racing line out of that turn 15 area that we just saw Frank Vitiello go through there, really kind of feed the car out wide, then bring it in. And car 214 here, I see a message from race control that is for Todd Treffert. That's going to be a stop and go. That's a pit lane speed violation, a little bit fast.
So at least he got that out of the way here in qualifying.
And I do see him on an out lap, so good to have him out there on the racetrack. Go serve that here real fast.
Yeah. This is probably, I wouldn't doubt that might be why he's come out on track once again. As with Stout out there, we need to watch his sector times. He's finished his out lap. He must be in the first sector now, and yes, indeed, he is.
And now we got pictures of him up on the screen. So we're going to see if Carl Stout's going to go out there and turn a lap that's even faster than what he did call it about 10 minutes ago. And we've seen him do this strategy before, right, where he goes out there, turns a couple laps, brings the car in, cools everything down, probably has a chat with his team, maybe even review some of that data and say, you know what, is there a significant amount of time that I can go out there and gain?
I did find it fascinating yesterday. I spent some time between turns 19 and 20 kind of watching the Cup cars practice. And that turn 19 is a real tell on who's got a handle of both this car and this track, because that 243 car, very easily pushing smooth off the corner. And you saw so many other drivers with the tail hanging out, just struggling to either maximize it, or they were way more shallow than what I saw Carl doing.
And if you're shallow into a corner, it usually means push on the way in and then loose coming out because you have so much steering wheel cranked into the thing. The 243 car right now not showing necessarily faster in Sector 1 or Sector number 2. I don't think this is going to be some sort of rocket ship savior lap that the 243 is going to be able to put down, but good to see him go out there and try anyways. And afterwards, still got a lap after this too.
Frank's latest lap was an improvement. He stays down in fourth in the Masters class, though. It is still Scalzo who is on the provisional pole for the Masters with less than 2 minutes to go. If you are not on a lap, then unfortunately you're not going to be able to get around to start one, as they are allowed to finish those hot laps. And yeah, that looks to me like he is abandoning this session.
It was interesting to see him go back out there and try for something, but just the grip wasn't quite there on the racetrack. I think we still have a few more cars out there. Keith McGovern shows out there, Frank Vitiello, and then also Alain Scalzo. I believe this is Frank here on the front straightaway, starting his next qualifying effort.
Yeah, this is definitely his last go, thanks to the clock, and unfortunately was not able to go quicker last time. I almost wonder if Carl was just maybe getting the car out there to cover things off in case there was some time being found by other drivers. He did have a huge gap, but he effectively kind of came out, had an out lap and then an in lap. Didn't really have a push lap there.
Yeah, and kind of what it screams to me is it doesn't make sense because you have to use these tires for qualifying. It screams to me that he would go out there and scrub a set of tires for later on in the weekend, but I'm not sure if that's even possible in a qualifying session.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that would be the call.
Oh, that was a huge loose moment. Frank Vitiello is now off of the gas. Sorry to interrupt you there, Joe, but that was coming up over the hill of turn number 9, and the back end just stepped out.
Good catch on that, which means that his qualifying is effectively over. Scalzo is still out there, and Keith McGovern. Todd Treffert's on an out lap, but obviously he can't do anything with that. As I'm looking through, yeah, and there you can see that's the 214 of Treffert, so that car is not going to be working on a hot one. The 222 is behind them coming onto the back stretch, and the 288, that's Keith McGovern, is just coming to that hairpin of 11 as well. Checkered flag is out. Session has ended, but we wait to see if anybody can change the order. Scalzo's already up there. He can probably park it if he wanted it. It's going to be McGovern, I think, that really needs this good lap.
And there you see Treffert and Vitiello playing nice in the qualifying session. I think that they were both kind of off the gas a little bit on the back straightaway here. I expect this red 248 to kind of putt it around and collect everything from that huge save, maybe even a new driver suit at the end of this one.
That corner, that rise up over 9 certainly is scary if the car starts to go from you. You'll see Treffert duck into the pits. I can tell you that Keith McGovern is coming out of the stadium section right now, down into the triple apexer. There goes Scalzo. Looks like he is still pushing, so he's going to complete this lap, trying to get the best out of it. He currently has the quickest of our Masters drivers. Let's see if this one is any better, and the answer is an unfortunate no, but he can at least have some comfort in the fact that he will have the best position, as that was Keith McGovern in the background of the black, orange, and white car. He'll cross the line. What's this one going to be? Another one that stays as it is. So an anticlimax, unfortunately, but a good one for Stout and Scalzo, as Carl will be your pole sitter in the Pro-Ams. It'll be Hankins in second next to him on that front row. Blake McGovern will start from third, as Luke French will be fourth. Then it's Alex Pratt in fifth and Javier Ripple Jr. sixth in the Cup cars. Masters pole goes to Elaine Scalzo. It'll be Todd Treffert in second, with Keith McGovern third, Frank Vitiello fourth, and Reggie Tartaglione starting from fifth. But now we get to see Group B come out in just a moment.
Yeah, I think we have a short little break in between Group A and Group B. Pretty cool that we also have the NASCAR Youth Series out here in the paddock doing some racing in the parking lot.
Yeah, I've been enjoying in between, kind of seeing those cars circulate. In the meantime, we'll leave you for a second. We'll be back with Group B in the GT3 Cup qualifier.
Experience the ultimate thrill, Porsche GT Track Day, where passion meets performance on some of North America's most legendary racetracks. Designed exclusively for Porsche owners, this is your chance to unleash the full potential of your vehicle in a motorsport environment. Drive the same circuits as professional racers, on the same weekend as Porsche Sprint Challenge events. Where will your Porsche take you? With limited space, every Porsche GT Track Day ensures a premium, exclusive experience. You'll get nearly 3 hours of track time, starting with reconnaissance laps, progressing through lead-follow sessions, and culminating in exhilarating open laps. Plus, strap in for heart-pounding hot laps with a professional race driver.
I thought I was fast. Didn't resemble anything that I've ever done.
Beyond the track, immerse yourself in VIP hospitality, premium viewing areas, and exclusive paddock access where you can witness Porsche Sprint Challenge teams in action. Spots are limited. Scan the QR code now to reserve your place at Porsche GT Track Day.
When we began racing, we started with a question. Can a dream become a legacy? Across endless nights, relentless rain, competition that never slows. Through every failure, every win, every single race, we've asked ourselves, can a dream become a legacy? And 75 years later, the answer is clear. Because we weren't built for racing, we were born for it.
Welcome back to Circuit of the Americas. We are here watching Porsche Sprint Challenge North America GT3 Cup qualifying. Group B heading out onto the circuit in just a moment, as NASCAR Youth also sharing the track with us this weekend. I'm Joe Peak with Joey Atterbury bringing you the action. We'll have racing later today. Track itself, 91 Fahrenheit, but the air, at least for Texas, a very lovely 70 Fahrenheit. A little bit humid, but I can take that.
It is starting to warm up, though, because in our earlier sessions, the track temperature was, call it mid-upper 80s, and like you just pointed out, it is now 91 degrees. It is fun watching these NASCAR youths go around, and you mentioned sharing the same racetrack. I wonder what their lap times would be around the full circuit.
A little bit more than 2.5 minutes, probably. But they would be a lot of fun, I think, to whip around here.
You could cut through the paddock. You don't even need to do the
There
track.
you go, yeah. But this group, obviously, going to be the rest of our field that was missing. You'll see them in a moment head out there, and it will combine all the times. There they are lined up, ready to go. And you can see the drivers trying to make sure that they also stay cool out there, because it feels great for us, but it's a little bit warmer inside that cockpit.
See the doors open, and a few of those just trying to get a little bit of that clean air. And it's tough when you only have one side open, so you don't think about it, but the other side's got the Lexan window, right? It's closed, and there's not much air going into the car right now. If anything, they're just letting hot air out.
Yeah. And hopefully they should be released here in about 1 minute, it looks like. 2 minutes, actually, I think, that we will find ourselves released and then on our way around this track. How important, Joey, do you think having a good qualifying will be at this circuit? Because we were at Sonoma, where it was probably a little bit more important, but passing here in the GT cars, is it tough? Is it easy? Was it somewhere in between?
So I think that qualifying here at COTA is actually more important than at a quote-unquote track position track like Sonoma. So the reason why I say that is Sonoma, you have limited passing opportunities. That's why it's important to qualify. But here, if you qualify 7th, 8th, 9th, and you should be up inside the top 3, by the time you get to the other side of the track, those leaders are well down the road. So track position, incredibly important to place your car in the group that you need to be in that you're racing with.
That's a good point. We'll see if anybody does wind up out of position. There's the 1-to-go signal from our flagman at the end of pit lane, so we're getting ready to be released here. And remember, the timing line is not there where you see the start line. They use the F1 finish line for the timing and scoring here in qualifying when the drivers cross just out of turn 20. Also called the Andretti here, with Mario being one of the big proponents of this circuit when it was first opened. We wait for that flag to be dropped and the drivers to be released. We'll see who is going to wind up to use this first lap well, get the tires up to temperature, get themselves into a good position. Because, yes, they're all going to be released at the same time, but then those at the back are going to have to probably wait a little bit patiently, get themselves some clean air.
What will be interesting, though, I think here about 3 seconds, we're going to get the cars released and get that green flag up and going. There they go. So the flagman has now opened the racetrack. You see the message from race control. We can get the race cars out there. But what I was going to point out is the last couple qualifying sessions that we've had for GT3 Cups have been a little bit interesting with the weather between Group A and Group B. And here at COTA, I feel like it's a very good back-to-back.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking of that too. For those that are curious, if they do have conditions that change dramatically between the two sessions, they will essentially qualify them by row. So the fastest in this session would be the outside of row 1, whereas the fastest in the first session would be the inside of row 1, if that makes sense. Don't think we'll need to rely on that this time out, crossing fingers that I haven't cursed it for some strange reason. But as they find their way around the track, the 267 taking his time.
I have to chuckle because seeing a bunch of race cars leave pit exit in a very slow fashion just seemed very nonchalant to get out there on the racetrack. Now, I will say what Siegel is doing, now he's the head of the line, I appreciate this, at least from a performance standpoint, because if he goes out there and just does 10/10ths on the outlap, they're actually essentially going to catch up to the back of the field quite quickly. Now, if Siegel does a really slow outlap, he's basically saying, everybody else behind, you guys have to manage your gap. I got my gap. It's up to you guys now.
And they're not allowed to pass on this outlap either. So that's why you're seeing everybody just kind of staying slow and not just zooming past him. So I almost wonder if there's a little bit of gamesmanship here that, besides the point that you're making of him costing a few people a little bit extra time. But he'll get going here shortly because he wants to get those tires up to temperature. And there you can see even the 219 intentionally making sure that's Greg Shermer trying not to overtake the other cars around him so that he does not get a penalty. Our times there on the board, that's what they are trying to match. So a 207.1 is your provisional pole over in the Pro-Am, and a 209.3 is your Masters pole right now. That's what everybody is going to be trying to catch.
I guess the easiest way, since we're talking about those graphics there on the left side, everybody that's got that blue P, that was Group A. They are in pit lane. Everybody that's got that orange O, that means they are on their out lap on the racetrack right now, and then we'll be getting those lap times starting to trickle in here. Call it about 2.5 minutes, because I bet you Siegel is probably coming around, 17, 18 right about now, and then we'll be getting on the gas here pretty hard to essentially start the qualifying lap. But, I mean, Joe, we're already 3 minutes in.
Yeah, if his goal was to suck up some time, then he has absolutely succeeded. That's a whole lap's worth that probably could have been utilized here, as he's now on the throttle, flying down the main straight. As we said, Siegel is in a tight championship fight with Blake McGovern right now, with 3 points between them. So if he can get quicker than that 240, then that will start him off well. Up around Big Red, and then back down into the S's as he quickly tries to open up turn 2 to set himself up for the critical back and forth here.
This is such a tough part on the racetrack. You got to stay ahead of each one of these corners and clip those apexes as much as you can. You saw a little bit of some uneasiness in the weight transfer, that weight shift between the left and the right corners. That's what the drivers have to deal with throughout this entire S section. And guess what? It ain't over. You're coming up to turn number 9, where we saw Frank Vitiello have that huge loose moment up at the top of the hill. And now plunge it back down towards 11.
Got to spot your brake marker here. You do not want to go wide. You want to carry the speed. It's such a sharp turn, and it opens up very wide through there. Ooh, he was close to the edge of the track, though. Thankfully, that's not one of the ones where you are being watched for track limits, but he kicked up some dust.
And usually when you see a driver all the way out on driver's right side like that, they maybe carried a little bit too much speed going into the apex and then just forced their hands to open up, so that way it wasn't costing them any sort of time on that exit there. Matt Siegel knows that. He knows to clean it up in turn 11 this next time by, but this first lap certainly looks to be a pretty good one.
We won't know until the timer crosses the line, as we watch him go through the stadium section here, within the track boundaries, through that portion, and now down through the triple apex, or around the tower, and towards 19 and 20. Those are corners they absolutely are watching. Let's hope that he is within the bounds on that one as he comes around. We got a nice static camera to watch, and that looked good to me, as he's definitely pushing. So what will the time be as he crosses the line?
Should be up inside the top 5 or so, and there he actually goes up into 5th. Got dropped to 6th immediately, though, because Riley Giacomazzi is just a couple of cars behind Matt Siegel, at least on the racetrack, and put down a 2:08.42. So Matt put down a 2:08.91. He's going to try to clean it up and go even faster.
Now, Riley interests me because he was only 8th quickest in the last practice session. And I know it's practice, so we can't put too much into it. But it did surprise me that he was that far down, because Riley's been so quick all season.
And that practice time was a 2:08.4 that he did, and he just matched it on his first qualifying lap. So tends to tell me that maybe put some a little bit better tire on the car and pick up some speed. You see how much Siegel there was hugging the right side of the road. That's another kind of option to try to shortcut it. Try to make the track as short as you possibly can.
We have one driver returning that we haven't seen in a minute. Danny Jashelski is back competing. He came in with a big splash last season. Very young driver, very talented, and worked his way up through the order. And suddenly is coming back to see if he could try and beat a few drivers, show them how it's done here. Giacomotti with a personal best first and second sector. Siegel as well, also going quicker. Right now, Giacomotti is off of the pole time by, looks like about 1.2 seconds. He is within a very close amount, just over a tenth behind Brandon Hankins, so he could easily jump up onto the front row depending on how much faster he is going this lap.
Riley exiting one of the slower corners that we've got here at COTA, and now got to balance the car. Such a long right-hander with a little bit of elevation that starts to really drop off at the end of the final apex there, and come up to turn number 19 rapidly at that pace. And you really got to woe the car up there to make sure that you get on the apex for 19. And then 20 is almost just kind of a scaled down 19. I think the best part about turn 20, though, is that it's actually uphill a little bit, so you can drive the car into the corner. You just have to be careful about how loose it gets on the exit when it flattens out.
Riley to the front row. Still nobody seems able to touch Carl as he's 8 tenths ahead of Giacomotti. Siegel, though, he jumps up into third, so a massive improvement from Matt on his second timed lap. But Jashelski, he just went purple in the second sector. Watch out for the 252.
He went green in sector number 1, and car 203 we're seeing gets invalidated for a lap time out there. We've been talking so much about the track limits and basically where you can and can't go out there. Evidently the 203, that's Tony Melito having that lap deleted.
Jens Hansen goes into 8th in the Cup class. Still Scalzo our fastest in the Masters. Bowden moves himself up into 3rd. But he's still got a lot of cars between himself and Scalzo. Remember, they will grid these cars according to the overall time, not according to class. And Jashelski has stolen the pole.
Well, we were wondering where Lockie Bloxham went. Apparently, he's got a name change to Danny Jashelski. But Carl Stout is out there saying, you know what, I thought I finally had a grip on this competition, and all of a sudden somebody else shows up.
Oh, the 252 was all kinds of sideways there. And that is
Jashelski at the top of the hill. Yep.
Wow. So, my goodness, using all of the track and then some, and the car still looks very slidey.
Well, and we've got a yellow. There's the car off right there. Driver's right where Jashelski just went by. So I expect Danny to have lifted off on this lap. There was a car that looked like it had spun. Driver's right between turn 8 and turn 9. Certainly looks like they've gotten going again, and now the racetrack is clean.
It looks like that was Melito in the 203. Yeah, we're getting race control. Letting us know.
There's another one.
And that's the 219.
This is just out of turn number 11, going out onto the back straightaway. Actually, a pretty common spot, Joe. You're trying to get on the gas as soon as possible.
Yeah, we've seen it a number of times in many series, and there is a bit of a drop. You can kind of see it, that the track falls away from you just as you come off that corner, so I'm sure that doesn't help. Thankfully, he gets it going, but Greg has definitely cost a few drivers what could potentially have been a fast lap there. Yeah, Danny Jashelski, I think the big thing was that he actually started out in the Caymans back in 2025, and then in that same season jumped up into the Cup cars and was just as successful in the Cup cars. So he switched classes and then found himself, I believe he is currently racing over in the Carrera Cup right now. I have to check to see what his results look like on that front. But we got some track limits violations for the 264 car.
Yeah, cruise through here, and that's going to be Neil back here, currently 9th in the Masters class. This lap is not going to be faster from Jashelski. I'm actually kind of pretty amused at how fast it was, even given that there was a couple of yellow flags that he had to deal with out there at 207.86. I mean, that is still a smoking lap time. I think that would be good enough for what is, call it, second place.
I know we've been mentioning Lockie a lot. He is actually back in Australia competing in Australian Carrera Cup now. So this just effectively worked with his schedule for a couple rounds that worked for him. Does sound like he enjoyed it a lot, and that he wants to come back, though. And I don't blame him. I'd love to see him return because I enjoyed getting to call his races.
Well, he was putting up a great fight against Carl Stout when Carl was just pretty much running away from the field out there. So, yeah, it would be great to have Lockie back here, and especially if we got that fight between Carl and Danny, Lockie, Riley, Matt Siegel out there, Blake McGovern, all of these names. It would be pretty fun to watch those guys up at the top.
Another lap that is drivers seemingly backing off a little bit because there's hardly any green showing up on our timing and scoring right now. Using maybe a little bit of slipstream here, Danny Dashelski, as he comes down the back straightaway. I'm kind of curious how much that would actually help in these cars.
I'm sure that the slipstream is worth time, but the problem is lining up the slipstream efficiently. So Dashelski got a huge tow down the back straightaway. The problem was that his sector number 1 time over half a second off. His sector number 2 time was a second and a half off. So he got held up too much in order to have that slipstream really be effective on a qualifying lap.
Danny was 3/10 quicker than Carl on his quickest lap, so it's a decent gap there. Not as big as what we saw with Carl over the rest of the fields, but I think Stout might have some work on his hands to try and come away with yet another win. A lot of drivers coming into pit lane, including Danny. Jacques Amazzi is in. It looks like Matt Siegel is in as well. And Bowden is still out there. He still sits in third. This one's going to be important for him. And in fact, Tony Melito just went quicker. So Mark Bowden has 4 cars between himself and Scalzo, his championship rival.
Yeah, in about a half a second. So it's not like the times are hugely spread out between those drivers that you were just mentioning for that Masters class pole position. Maybe if Trevor can go up there and go a little bit faster, he can challenge Scalzo. And then the driver that you were just mentioning, Mark Bowden, still out on the racetrack, and he definitely can do that. We've seen momentum, very much a positive thing for that Fall Line Motorsports driver.
And I found it interesting when we talked to him after one of his wins at Sonoma, that he said he's essentially not taking anything for granted. And also not really trying to pay attention to the championship too much. I think he's taking this a race at a time. And there you can see the separation between our Masters and the Pro-Am on the screen with them each in their own class to kind of give you an idea of where everybody sits on that front. So Mark is very focused this season, and I kind of don't blame him, because he missed out on the title in 2024 in the Masters category by 2 points. So that's why I think he's just kind of, you know what, let's maximize each and every weekend. Let's not really throw anything away when there's something there.
And Mark has been around the block when it comes to racing. You know, I know him from all the way back in the Grand Am days with some different manufacturers, but same shop over here with Fall Line Motorsports. They're always a staple when it comes to professional racing. So I have a feeling that when the stars line up and everything is all good, Mark Bowden is going to be near impossible to beat. However, if there's some other things that kind of get thrown the direction of the team, or maybe just in terms of track position, that's where things can kind of get bogged down. But you're right, in 2026, the momentum has been on the side of Mark Bowden, and he has simply been riding that wave.
He didn't get any wins in 25 and came back now with 2 of them to his name so far. Leads by 16 points. This is Chris Hutter that we're watching. And Chris is currently sitting in 12th in class right now. He's on an outlap, I'm showing. And he should, he's got plenty of time to get 1 more in.
Maybe even 2 more, depending on when he gets to the line up here. He's going to have to hustle. I'm not sure if he's going to quite reach it in order to get 2 more laps. And you see about 4.5 minutes remaining. He just came off of the back straightaway here. Let's watch the speeds through this really technical section. We saw, I think it was Carl Stout earlier doing 160 miles an hour. I think it was Luke French doing about 160 on the back straightaway. And here through 16, Joe, it's almost a school zone. Now, granted, speeding in a school zone, but that was about 40 miles an hour down through there.
Yeah, I was kind of amazed at how low the speeds have to be. It must be a very tough section, because you saw the corrections that he was making on the screen. It picks up here through the rest of the track before it'll slow down at the hairpin of Andretti. Keeps it within the boundaries. looks for his brake markers as he straddles the curb and then down to the inside. Let's see if Hutter goes, well, no, he's not going to go faster. I forgot it was an out lap, but now he starts a flying lap and is on his merry way.
You mentioned that he was straddling the curbs down there, turn number 20. One of the reasons why the drivers do that is first to open up the radius of the corner, right? Make just it not quite as sharp. And then the second point is those curbs, they're alligator curbs. So every single time you drive over one of those steps, you know, the tire loses just that little bit of traction. So you want to make sure that the platform is on completely solid asphalt, getting the most performance you can.
Best result of a top 5 so far this season. And that was an interesting message that we had from race control. Work not permitted while in the box. Loss of all times prior to this pit stop for the 225.
That's Jens Hansen.
Oh, that's not going to be good for him. So he'll have to start from the back. 264 was the one that brought out that yellow that is now back going. And that is that's Scott Neal.
I do see Jens Hansen out on the racetrack right now. So with the time remaining, he should at least be able to put down a qualifying lap. Now, here's the caveat, though. Jens has already turned a handful of laps, and we've seen these cars not be able to repeat that fastest lap time. Where is it going to place him?
Well, he's definitely going to need a good one here because there's a lot of cars in this Cup field. I thought we saw another yellow flag briefly. Looks like it's back to green already, so it must have been short. 211 getting ready to cross the line as Hinkle does improve his lap time down to a 2:15, but he stays in 10th.
Well, our top 11 cars that have put down qualifying times are already in pit lane. I think I see maybe about 6, 7, maybe 8 cars still out there on the racetrack, and they're all actually very, very well spread out right now. Nobody is nose to tail, so when you think about qualifying and not following somebody or somebody holding up and affecting your lap time, that is not going to be the case for any one of these drivers. They have a clean windshield, and it is up to them to extract the maximum performance they can.
Jeff Hinkle is the only one I'm seeing really finding some time here at the end of the session. Everybody is not gone green in any sectors for a little bit now. Hutter's going to carry on, keep trying his best to pick up a little bit more here as he's still only 11th in class, 13th overall, so he's still in the mid-pack, but he is going to be surrounded by quite a few of the Masters drivers that are outside of his class, which will probably make racing that little bit more annoying.
I think the 281, Chris Hutter is already on call it a little bit of a cool down out here, just going a little bit slower pace through what is sector number 2 out here on the racetrack. And, you know, I was noticing something. Joe, you pointed out some of the fresh asphalt that was down in the turn 12 area. It is amazing how much rubber has been laid down through the S's section. Now, we did have some other series here in, call it the weeks prior, and I don't think that it's rained heavy. This track is super rubbered up.
Yeah, clearly putting in some good times for these cars. Hinkle in that 211 is still on a personal best right now, so I'm keeping my eyes on that 211 while we have Hutter on the screen going into that pavement that we were just talking about, freshly laid down through turn 12. But I want to keep an eye out for Jeff because it looks like he might make a big jump here if this is any indication. And he takes the checkered flag just as the clock runs out, but he does not improve from 10th in his class. Still, he cuts it down to a 2:14 flat. He made a huge improvement.
So I still see a couple cars out there. The one that we're following right now is Chris Hutter, and I believe that he is on a cool-down lap right now. I think I see the 203. He's all the way at the opposite end of the racetrack down by what is turn 11. About to get onto the back straightaway right now. We'll see if Chris Hutter brings it into pit lane. Yep, sure enough, takes that left turn and brings it down into the paddock. And then I also see the 219 out there. That's Greg Shermer. 264 as well. And then you had mentioned the 211 had already taken the checkered flag.
And that latest lap, I think that's the one he just put in, was invalidated anyway. So there goes all that hard work. It doesn't really change his starting position from there. Just about 4 cars on the circuit right now. But again, it's not looking like any of them are on a push lap, so we may be done with this one. Once they get through this second sector, we'll see if anybody sets up a green one.
I'm really surprised that Jens Hansen didn't get back out onto the racetrack after that. And maybe it's because they were working on the car and it was up on air jacks and they physically couldn't get it out.
Yeah, I noticed that as well, that it was not showing him returning to the track. It's a bit of a baffler, but, I mean, could wind up with a bit of a fun race ahead of him, as he's going to have to pass a lot of cars. And, yeah, checkered flags popping up on our timing and scoring shows that nobody seems to be improving. We're just waiting for the last cars to get across. This is the 219. Coming around, Greg Shermer, and then you've got Scott Neal out there, as well as Hinkle, who obviously is already wrapped up, so he's just going to take it into pit lane. There goes Neal. So that gives us our results.
It looks like they're lining up to get to the NASCAR youth paddock.
Yeah. They want to have fun in even smaller cars. Danny Jashelski is our pole sitter for the Pro-Am over Carl Stout. Not too great of a surprise, but definitely raising some eyebrows. Jacques Amazzi will start on the inside of the second row. Matt Siegel starts from fourth. Then it is Brandon Hankins who is in P5. Blake McGovern starts sixth today, with Luke French in seventh, Alex Pratt in eighth, and Javier Ripple Jr. ninth, with Tony Melito rounding out your top 10. Chris Hutter, good enough for 11th today. Mark Krigler was 12th. Jens Hansen, without a lap time, will have to start from the back in 13th here today. From there, you have your GT3 Cup Masters, Joey.
Yeah, and it's Elaine Scalzo that takes the pole position in the 222 over there with a 209.31. Todd Treffert is going to be lined up in second place. And then Mark Bowden in third. Keith McGovern going to be starting out in the fourth spot with Frank Vitiello in the top 5. Bill Fennick is going to be starting in 6th, grading Willingham in 7th. Scott Neal in 8th. Shermer back here in 9th. Jeff Hinkle rounding out our top 10. And we do have a couple more of those drivers out there. Reggie Tartaglione going to be starting from 11th. And Manny Gilles de Riel, hopefully we'll see him out there a little bit later this afternoon, starting from 12th.
That wraps up our qualifying in the GT3 Cup cars. We are going racing in a little bit. Tune back in 12:50 Central Time for the Caymans race number 1 here at COTA.